Hey guys, Jeremy here, Simple Little Life, and I've got another knife build video for you. This is a bit of a different one. It actually ended up turning out different than I had thought it would. I kind of just started drawing it out there, and originally I was going to put a bunch of holes in the handle. I ended up going something quite different, and I'm not entirely sure where my mind changed on this project. But in case you didn't see it there, we are using 1/4 inch thick, 1.25 inch wide O1 tool steel. We just glued down our template, which was basically our drawing that we'd cut out, and then we're just gonna cut that out on the portable bandsaw. And I usually leave a little bit of room, probably about 1/8 of an inch at least, all around the template that we glue on. I just want to make sure I don't go into that template, into that final knife shape that we want to end up with, and I just take everything down to its final dimension on the belt grinder. Using first the vertical belt grinder with a flat platen, then we'll switch up to the contact wheel. That's a 10-inch wheel there. And then after we're done with that, we'll jump to the horizontal belt grinder, and that part was just to clean up that little finger groove. Then we'll lay down some marker, and I'll grab my knife maker scribe that I'd made, and I just kind of alternate back and forth till I find a set of lines that leave two lines about 20 thousandths of an inch apart, and that's where I take my edge thickness to. So we'll just scribe those lines there, and that will be what we grind to. I like that plunge line guide there because it gives me a definite place to stop, and it just really makes sure that you don't accidentally over grind and end up, kind of wrecking your plunge line there. So I find that little guide works really good when I'm grinding by hand. And what I'll do when I grind, I'll start off taking my material quite steep, probably like a 45-degree angle. Get close to the grind line that we had marked in the center that we want to bring the edge to, and then I'll start to feather it out to however high up the blade that I want the grind or the bevel to go to. On this knife though, I decided I wanted to try out a full flat grind, so essentially that bevel will be the entire side of the blade. And this was the first one I'd ever done, and it really wasn't that difficult. I was quite impressed, and I'll definitely be doing more of these in the future. Once we've got our heavy grinding done with the coarser belts, then we'll switch to the finer ones and just start some of the fine feathering. I find when you start that 45-degree angle and put a real rough grind in there at first, it's nice because you get a lot of the heavy work done, and then you can kind of a little bit more precisely and a little bit more relaxed do all the feathering and kind of the blending work of grinding a bevel. I look at grinding bevels as a multi-stage process. It's not something that I just I set my angle and I grind to that and I'm done. I find if I do a lot of the heavy work, the hogging off the heavy material, and then as you go down to progressively finer and finer belts, then you just kind of, the workload becomes less and less, and you're actually pushing less hard, and it's more of a fine work as you get towards the end. And then here we're just putting the final grain on with a surface conditioning belt. And that's as far as I'm going to take this blade. I'm not going to do any finer finishing than that. I don't see any real need to. I get a really great result with those surface conditioning belts. Now, it was probably about this point in the project where I had decided to try something a little different. And what I'd wanted to do was do some type of a scalloped handle or some weird textured contoured handle. So I just laid out a set of lines there, just even marks, and then I marked out the spine, just to give myself a set of lines that I could work from. And what I'm trying to do here is just kind of grind different grooves in different places, alternating from the top to the bottom of the handle. I'm not entirely sure what I thought it would turn out. I didn't have any idea in my mind of what it would look like when I was done. I just started grinding away, I guess, and the result it's okay. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily crazy about it, although it's kind of interesting. And actually, I'm glad I tried it because I feel like I learned something about it by doing this. It's different than anything I've ever done before. I'm not entirely sure that I would do it again. I might. It's kind of cool. But there's actually a few things about it that I would do differently next time. So this is what I would call an experimental blade. Something where you're just kind of doing something for the sake of it. You don't really care if it turns out well or not. Just more of a learning process than anything. And then we'll drill in. I'm just drilling a single hole into the handle there in case I want to wrap a lanyard or something like that to it. And then we'll kind of blend those in with some finer belts on the horizontal belt grinder. My idea with this knife would be something that would be a knife that was a decent size, where like almost a small kitchen knife size, but a little bit more rugged. So I would call this one like my meat and cheese knife. So if you're going on a hike up in the mountains, a day hike, and you got some, some sausage and some cheese and bread for lunch, I want a knife that would be suitable to prep all that and be big enough that you could do all that work. I'd still want to be able to chop some wood or something if I had to, so I guess I call it my hiking lens. My meat and cheese knife, that's what I'm calling this. Then we're just on the scalped belt there, on the belt grinder. Just kind of do a little blending, get rid of all those edges. And then we'll grab the Fortum, and we're going to kind of blend all those different grooves in. And I'd actually thought that this would be less work than putting scales on a knife, but it was way more work actually doing some type of a profiled handle like this. I was actually shocked at how much more work it was. Again, I was trying to get away with less work, so I thought, oh, if I don't have to put scales on a knife, it's going to save a lot of time and a lot of effort. I was completely wrong on this one. Maybe just drilling a bunch of holes would have been the way to go. And then we'll heat treat the blade. And then after heat treat, we'll get rid of all that scale. Just jump on the belt grinder again, surface conditioning belt. Try and get into every nook and cranny that I can on the grinder first before I jump to other methods of getting rid of that scale. And then get in there for all those little grooves, get rid of all that scale in there. Also do a little bit of blending, kind of get all the grain going in the same direction. Make it so it all kind of matches up nicely. Always protecting the bevel when we're doing any other work, because again, gotta put it in the vise and spend more time with the Fortum. I would probably say I spent 2 to 3 hours with my Fortum on this knife, just trying to blend everything together. Granted, I could have done a little bit more of the heavy work in the beginning with a coarse belt on my horizontal grinder. There's also a few things on this one that I would do differently on the next one. Then we're going to jump onto the old buffing wheel. And when I use those yellow, those are very aggressive wheels. They're impregnated with some type of material. I'm not sure what it is, but I use those with black buffing compound, and that actually does a really good job of blending metal and kind of knocking off burrs and edges and smoothing everything out. I don't use this process so much for polishing as I do just for blending and deburring, I guess. I'm going to get out our paper wheel sharpener. And you kind of see I've got it set up right now so I can use it with or without my sharpening guide. This blade I decided to do without the sharpening guide. One of the reasons is that with a full flat grind, I've got no flat surface that I can put my knife clamp onto. And I don't know, some knives I just would rather do entirely by hand on the paper wheels. So it's actually kind of nice to have that option. I can use it with my fancy guide setup that you may have seen in other videos, or I can still do it all freehand if I choose to. Final polish on it with some Jeweler's Rouge on that wheel. Yeah, it cuts paper alright. A couple little things I didn't like about it, so we're just gonna do the final little cleanup on the edge there. There, that's cutting better. That's a little more how I like it. Let's see how it shaves. Yep, that shaves hair really well. one more quick little paper test. Kind of a fun knife, something we might try in the future again, something we might change up a little bit, but either way, you ended up with a nice sharp blade that'll be useful on the hiking trail. Well, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please give a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.